And so it is.
Right.
Now, one of our most vocal commentators, Philip Cuthbert, otherwise known as PMC, took a little moment like on Walden Pond.
Mario and Vic, I got a question. It's sort of a what-if question. It's related to the Occupy Wall Street movement. You guys have been talking about it, and I've been thinking about it. I know the mainstream media and Vic and you guys have been stating that they don't have a leader. They seem to have no real defined message. And they're sort of aimless. My what-if question would be, what if that continues? What if they don't have a real message? What if it's just a generalized discontent and it's growing in America and it continues for a long time, for a long period of time, without any real defined leader, without any real defined message? I think we have to pay attention to the mainstream media. The mainstream media is promoting, I think, this theory that there is no leader and there is no defined message. But you have to remember that the mainstream media is defined, or they're owned and run by corporations.
That's right.
So it's quite possible that they want to promote, or they want to force this group into a message. Why do I say that? Well, if they become easier to control if they have a defined message, if they have a leader.
Because they can take a leader out.
once you define your cause, once you define your message, once you have a real leader, then whoever you're protesting against can plot their strategy of how they're going to handle you. I think one scary possibility would be that this continues and there is no real defined message. There is no one centralized message, even though I don't believe that that's the case. I think there is a centralized message. I think it's anti-corporation, anti-bankers, anti-Wall Street, and the power brokers that control the politicians. I think that's the centralized message that they would lead you to believe it doesn't exist. But let's just say, what if there is no real defined message and it just continues?
Well, that's the situation.
It lingers on, and these masses grow, and protests grow all across the country. Another theory is here on the East Coast, we know winter's coming and it's going to get cold. What are these people on Wall Street in New York City going to do when the hawk starts blowing through? Are they going to pack it in? Well, it's not cold all over America. The protests could move to the West Coast and move to California. But I guess my what-if question to you guys is, what if it just continues and there's no real defined message? I think there's something to pay attention to there, and there's really no defined leader. What happens then? It makes me think of, I know Mario and I grew up on the philosophy of George Clinton, and he has a song called Martial Law, and in there's a line that says, it's gonna take martial law, curfew ain't gonna get it. There's another line that he has that says, think, it ain't illegal yet. Think, it ain't illegal yet. So I guess my question for you, Mario, and the Pack Stereo crew is, what if this does continue just aimlessly, the masses just congregate all across America and swarm on the power brokers with no real defined message? What happens then?
Great question, you guys. That's PMC in the chat room always. one of the chat room moderators, and Mac, I just granted your privileges, trying to grant Norman privileges, but Norman, you got to sign in with a live stream account. But you guys checking that all out, you know, the commentary stands, and it stands today. And actually, PMC, I took it really with a historical perspective, with the idea that nothing is new. If one wants to see, get any kind of idea of how countries respond or how the U.S. has responded, one can actually go watch the videos that stem out of the Depression. When you go look at the Depression. Now, when I say look at the Depression, I'm not going to say let's not just look at what happened with the average citizens. Let's look what happened to the U.S. veterans who attempted to occupy the area and outside the Capitol for benefits that they had already been promised. Okay? They called in MacArthur to take them and move them out. Okay? Now you got to understand that. These are U.S. veterans. Okay? These are U.S. veterans. MacArthur. Let's see. And U.S. veterans. And this is some historical things because you can see these were our veterans who had fought in the war, who were due their benefits, who they didn't get their benefits because the money was tight. And they occupied D.C. Okay? Okay, and here's a little thing on it. People are unaware because they pulled in MacArthur. They pulled in General MacArthur to clear him out.
Washington was under siege. The capital was surrounded by over 10,000 unemployed veterans of World War I from all over the country. Their only assets were the bonus certificates they'd been given after the war, which promised a cash bonus sometime in the future. They needed it now.
They're starving.
At the end of May 1932, nearly 10,000 bonus marchers occupied the nation's capital, and tens of thousands more were on their way.
Washington to get my bonus, and I'm going to wait for it till I get it if I have to wait till 1945.
That brought you to Washington?
Well, to beat the Undertaker, spend the money before the Undertaker gets it.
I know who's made this country worth living in. It's just you fellas. Look, makes me so damn mad a whole lot of people speak of you as tramps. By God, they didn't speak of you as tramps in 1917 and 18. No. Take it from me, this is the greatest demonstration of Americanism we've ever had. Pure Americanism.
Occupy Wall Street perspective.
President Hoover was left to deal with the veterans when the Senate rejected their demands. The marchers had stayed, camped out in central Washington.
On July 16th, the last day Congress was in session, Washington was on edge. Thousands of angry veterans surrounded the Capitol.
Historical
Near
perspective.
Midnight, the 72nd Congress adjourned.
Occupy Wall Street.
Congressmen left through back doors and underground tunnels to avoid confrontations. The situation had come to a head. The president ordered the evacuation of the veterans from downtown Washington.
Woo!
Now you bring in the troops.
When MacArthur moved his troops to the affected area, he knew exactly what he was going to do. And he adorned himself in his dress uniform along with his major aide, Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Ass kicking coming.
The force stepped off at 4:30 p.m. More than 200 cavalrymen spread out across Constitution and Pennsylvania avenues. Behind them came 400 infantrymen, followed up by tanks.
This is Washington, D.C.
The cavalrymen, one of whom is Major Patton, have got their sabers out.
The soldiers donned gas masks and without warning began hurling gas grenades at the veterans.
At U.S. veterans.
Troops advanced.
Who got
some jabbing.
They have
bayonets.
vouchers.
It's war. The greatest concentration of fighting troops in Washington since 1865.
There's a history of how they deal with you, gentlemen.
Going to happen.
that they might be attacked.
So what's the message?
And
they will kick your
card.
ass.
So I passed the police lines, and then I saw the soldiers advancing into the camp. And when confronted with this,
MacArthur burned them out.
The men all stood there and said, "Stand firm as long as you can." And they started throwing tear gas.
This is against our own U.S. veterans with vouchers.
10,000 veterans, right?
I was
think it's more than that.
behind my dad, and he kept hollering, "Come on, boy! Come on, boy!"
Marchers were choking from the gas, just like the battlefields in France.
And so they're being forced out of their shacks by smoke bombs and tear gas, hurled by the troops who have been called out by the President of the United States.
I'd never seen anything like it.
Is this like Occupy Wall Street to you guys?
And burned up all the tents and all the possessions.
I told you there's a history. They will kick your ass.
I was thinking of Herbert Hoover when this happened, because his election was in 3 months. I thought this would be the finish of Hoover.
The orders of the President must be obeyed. And the roaring flames sound the death knell to the fantastic.
They want indefinite detention now.
In the shadow of the beautiful dome of the capital of the United States of America.
So they have had Occupy Wall Street.
Did not believe the country for which they had fought would ignore the plight into which the Depression had placed them. Many did not believe that United States troops would take the field against them.
By early evening, most of the marchers had been driven across a drawbridge that led to their main camp.
The president does not want MacArthur to cross the bridge. And MacArthur disregards the order. Eisenhower later says that he saw this happen. MacArthur says, "I cannot bother with pieces of paper during a military operation." And so he crosses the bridge.
MacArthur
All
just
through
kicks
the camp
ass.
were scenes of panic.
My dad says, "Let's get the hell out of here. The soldiers are going to kill us."
Then troops began to set fire to their wooden shacks. One reporter
This
wrote,
is in front of
the blaze was so big
the
it
Capitol.
lit the whole sky. A nightmare come to life. The president looked out a window of the White House in the direction of the fire, then retired for the night.
Like I tell you, I think they sleep good.
And the roaring flames sound the death knell to the fantastic.
That's collateral damage, people.
So this is happening during the Depression, right?
In the shadow.
This is 1936, I think.
Of America.
See, that was what the veterans had vouchers that they were owed this money. They were starving.
The bonus route.
Look at this. Look at
Public
this.
sentiment took a dramatic turn against Herbert Hoover.
Look at this.
If the expulsion needed a human face, it came in the person of Joe Angelo, whose story was published across the nation.
Joe Angelo gets the Distinguished Service Cross for saving Patton's life on the battlefield. The next morning, Angelo comes to the burned-out field to see Patton. And Patton says, "Take this man away. I don't want to see this man."
The BEF was broken up.
Wow.
The men returned to some city or other, there to roam the streets, hopelessly seeking work or to shuffle in bread lines. There they remain, crying examples not of the need for the bonus, but of the need for a new American system.
Like I said, there's nothing new, everybody. Occupy Wall Street, historical perspective. PMC said, what happens if it continues? That's why I wanted to show you. There is an answer. There are many examples of these answers that I could show you. They're kept in our history in a way that people don't like to open them up because it's all dirty laundry. But I like to go back because that's where I got my perspectives. By studying the past, looking for the examples of where they were handled. The same problems always exist. They go way, way, way back. And the same ways for dealing with them have always been there. And as you can see, the U.S. has treated, and as a black man, see, we have a special perspective that sometimes I was looking at going, not only was this how we treated white folks back then, white veterans. Now, you know what they did to brothers. Okay, it would have been open fire, right? They would have had cannons on you, right? Okay. Anyway, so again, that's been Conspiracy Wednesday, everybody. Want to thank PMC for sending in that commentary. Want to thank the folks in the chat room. We shocked you today. NDAA a historical perspective on the Occupy Wall Street and their anniversary. And go on, Vic.
And I noticed something also. Go ahead, finish up, Mario. It's about PMC's piece.
Well, at least we get to remember and see about how things were. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been the good news, the bad news, and the other shit. I know I got some wild tales to tell, but it ain't my history. I just bring out the perspective. When you look at Occupy Wall Street and look at that, you say, oh, shit. Oh, Lord. That's what, like Norman says, ain't nothing new.